Nobody sat you down. Not your parents. Not your teachers. Not the school that spent 12 years teaching you things you have largely forgotten. Not the system that handed you a diploma and sent you into an economy you had no framework to navigate. Nobody sat you down and said, "Here is how money actually works. Here is what debt does over time. Here is why the first 10 years of your financial life will determine the shape of the next 40. Here is the information you need before you make the decisions you are about to make." Nobody said any of this. Not because they did not care, because nobody sat them down either. The conversation was not withheld from you maliciously. It was not taught because it was not taught to the people who would have taught it. The absence is generational. The silence passed from parent to child the way accents pass, without intention, without awareness, without anyone noticing what was missing. You are 16 years old. This is the conversation you should have had. What money actually is. Sit down. Not the version of this conversation where someone tells you to save your pocket money. Not the version where someone explains that credit cards are dangerous in a way that makes you never want to touch one. Not the versions that makes money feel like something to be afraid of rather than something to understand. The real version. Money is not a reward. Money is not a measure of your worth as a person. Money is not something the good people have enough of and the bad people have too much of. Money is a tool, a neutral instrument that amplifies whatever you use it for. If you use it well, it amplifies your freedom. If you use it carelessly, it amplifies your constraints. The instrument does not have opinions about which direction it goes. That is entirely up to you. The first thing you need to understand about money is that it has a cost, not the cost of spending it, the cost of time. $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow. Not because of inflation, though inflation is real, but because $1 today can be put to work. It can earn. It can compound. It can become more than $1 by the time tomorrow arrives. This is called the time value of money, and it is the most important concept in your entire financial life. Every financial decision you will ever make is essentially a decision about time. Pay now or pay later. Invest now or invest later. Start now or start later. The time dimension of every decision is as important as the dollar dimension, often more important. At 16, the single most powerful financial advantage you have is not intelligence, not connections, not a trust fund or a scholarship or a family with money. It is time. You have more time than any 25-year-old, more time than any 35-year-old, more compounding years ahead of you than most people who are trying to fix their finances will ever have again. The decision you make with that time in the next 10 years will shape the next 50. Nobody told you that. I am telling you now. What compound interest? Actually, does you have heard the phrase, compound interest? It appears in textbooks. It sounds important. It never sounded important enough to change anything about your behavior. Let me try again. You're 16. You get a part-time job. You earn $200 per month. Instead of spending it, all of it, the way every 16-year-old is inclined to spend it, you put $100 per month into an investment account, a simple index fund. Nothing complicated, nothing exciting, $100 per month. You do this for 4 years, from 16 to 20, total invested, $4,800. Then you stop. You never add another dollar. You let it sit. At a historical average annual return of 7%, the long-term real return of the S&P 500 adjusted for inflation, that $4,800 invested between 16 and 20 becomes approximately $132,000 by the time you're 65. You invested $4,800. The market added $127,200. Now here is the part that will make you set this down and stare at the wall for a moment. Your friend waits. Not until 30. Not until 40. Until 25. 5 years after you stopped. He invests $100 per month from 25 to 65. 40 years of contributions. Total invested, $48,000. He invested 10 times what you invested. He ends up with approximately $265,000. You end up with $132,000 from $4,800. He ends up with $265,000 from $48,000. He invested 10 times more money for 10 times longer and ended up with only twice as much. The 4 years between 16 and 20, the 4 years when you had a part-time job and no real expenses and no dependents and no mortgage and no reason not to invest, those 4 years are worth more than the following 40 years of contributions. This is not a trick. This is arithmetic applied to time. And the reason nobody told you this at 16 is that the people who would have told you did not know it themselves, or knew it abstractly in a way that never became a bone-deep conviction, or started too late and found it too painful to explain to someone who still had time. You still have time. The time is now. What debt actually does now the other direction. Compound interest works for you when you invest. It works against you when you borrow. The credit card you will be offered at 18, or 19 or 20, or the moment you enter a university campus and find a table with free t-shirts and a sign-up form, will have an interest rate of somewhere between 18% and 29%, 18% to 29%. Annual interest on any balance you carry. You will not fully understand what that means until I show you. You charge $1,000 to a credit card at 22% annual interest. You make the minimum payment each month, approximately $25. At this rate, it takes approximately 5 years and 3 months to pay off that $1,000. You will pay approximately $654 in interest. The $1,000 purchase cost you $1,654 and 5 years of minimum payments. But that is the small version. The version that matters more happens when you carry a balance not for one purchase, but for years. The average American credit card debt is approximately $6,000 per cardholder. At 22% interest, a $6,000 balance generates approximately $1,320 in interest charges per year. $1,320 per year is $110 per month. $110 per month that produces nothing. Buys nothing. Builds nothing. It is the pure cost of having spent money you did not have at a moment when you did not have it. At 16, before the credit cards arrive, before the student loans arrive, before the car financing arrives, you have the rarest opportunity in personal finance. You can choose your relationship with debt before debt chooses its relationship with you. Not by avoiding debt entirely. Some debt at the right interest rate for the right asset is a legitimate financial tool, but by understanding it, by knowing what the interest rate actually costs over time, by never carrying a consumer credit card balance for longer than 1 month. This single rule, pay the credit card balance in full every month without exception, will save you more money over your lifetime than almost any other financial habit you ever develop. What a salary actually means. You will get a job. It will have a number, an annual salary, a number that will feel large or small depending on what you expected and what your friends earn and what your parents earn and what the cost of the life you imagined requires. Before you accept any salary, before you sign any offer, before you celebrate or feel disappointed, there is something you need to understand about what the number actually means. The number is not what you earn. Federal income tax will take approximately 22% of income above $44,725 for a single filer in 2024. State income tax will take another 3% to 13% depending on where you live. Social Security takes 6.2%. Medicare takes 1.45%. On a $60,000 salary, you will take home approximately $44,000 to $47,000 depending on your state. The $60,000 salary is a $44,000 salary. This matters before you spend money, before you sign a lease, before you buy a car, before you agree to a lifestyle that requires a $60,000 income when you actually have a $44,000 income. The second thing you need to understand about your salary is what it is not. It is not yours to spend. Not entirely. Not if you want the number to mean something beyond the transaction costs of living. The personal finance framework that has produced more millionaires from ordinary incomes than any other is simple. Pay yourself first, before the rent, before the groceries, before the phone bill, before anything else gets a claim on your paycheck. A percentage goes to your future self, to your investment account, to the compounding machine you started building at 16. 10% is the beginning. 15% is better. 20% is where ordinary incomes produce extraordinary outcomes. On a $44,000 take-home income, 20% is $8,800 per year. $733 per month. $733 per month invested from 22 to 65. At 7% real return is approximately $2.8 million. $2.8 million from a $60,000 salary. Not because the salary was exceptional, because the allocation was exceptional. Nobody told you this at 16. The adults around you were too busy spending 100% of their income to show you what 80% looks like, what an education actually costs. You are going to be offered a loan, a large one, possibly several. They will be presented to you at 17 or 18 as the investment in your future. The ticket to the career. The credential that separates you from the people who did not go. Before you sign, before you fill in the FAFSA, before you commit to 4 years at a price that will take a decade to repay, there are things you need to know. The average student loan debt for a bachelor's degree graduate in 2024 is approximately $37,000. At a 6.5% interest rate on a standard 10-year repayment plan, the monthly payment is approximately $421. Total interest paid over 10 years, approximately $13,500. The degree costs $37,000. It costs you $50,500 by the time it is paid off. This is not an argument against education. It is an argument for understanding what you are buying before you buy it. The questions nobody asks at 17, but everyone should ask. What is the average starting salary in the field this degree leads to? What is the median salary after 10 years? What is the ratio of debt to expected income? Is the credential itself what employers in this field value? Or is it the skills and portfolio that the credential is supposed to represent? A nursing degree with $30,000 in debt and a $55,000 starting salary has a very different financial logic than a philosophy degree with $80,000 in debt and a $35,000 starting salary. Both may be worth pursuing. But the financial logic of each is completely different, and the person choosing should understand the logic before they choose, not after. The second thing you need to understand about education is what it cannot do. A degree does not guarantee financial security. It never did. It guarantees a credential. What you do with the credential determines the financial outcome. The learning, the networking, the habits of thought, the willingness to keep learning after the degree, these determine the outcome. The piece of paper is the beginning, not the destination. What time actually costs? You are 16 and time feels infinite. This is the most dangerous financial illusion of adolescence. Not the illusion that you will get rich quickly. Not the illusion that debt is manageable. The most dangerous illusion is that there is always more time. There is not always more time. Not because life is short, though it is, but because compounding is ruthless about timing. The years between 16 and 25 are not simply the first 9 years of your adult financial life. They are the most powerful 9 years of your financial life. The ones where every dollar invested has the most time to compound. The ones that cannot be recovered if wasted. At 40, you cannot go back to 16 and invest the money you spent on things you no longer own. The opportunity does not offer a second appointment. The 25-year-old who starts investing has lost 9 compounding years to the 16-year-old who started early. Those 9 years cannot be compensated for by investing more later. They can be partially compensated for. Never fully. This is not meant to make you anxious about the past. You are 16. You have no past to regret. This is meant to make you very clear about the present. The present is not infinite. The years you have right now, the years before the mortgage, before the children, before the career demands, before the lifestyle that makes saving harder, these years are the most valuable financial years of your life. Not because you have more money now, because you have more time. And time, in the mathematics of compounding, is the only thing that cannot be bought back. Nobody sat you down. At 16, at 18, at 22 when the first credit card arrived, at 25 when the first salary felt like enough to spend, at 30 when the lifestyle started to cost more than the income justified. Nobody sat you down and said the things that needed to be said, not because they did not love you, because nobody sat them down either. The silence is generational. The absence of the conversation produced decisions made in the dark by people who deserved to make them in the light. But here is the truth about this conversation. It is not too late to have it. Not for you. Not for the person reading this at 35 who wishes they had heard it at 16. Not for the person at 45 who is calculating what they could have built if someone had explained compound interest before the years of spending. It is not too late. The best time to have this conversation was at 16. The second best time is now. The index fund opened today compounds from today. The credit card balance paid off this month saves the interest from this month. The percentage redirected to savings this paycheck builds from this paycheck. The math does not care how old you are when you start. The math only cares that you start. Somewhere right now, a 16-year-old is making their first financial decisions without this conversation. If you know one, a child, a sibling, a student, a nephew, a neighbor, sit them down. Say the things that needed to be said. The conversation that changes a financial life takes less than 1 hour. It just needs to happen.